Welcome to Just Asia, AHRC TV's weekly human rights program. These are the headlines. TV program discussing criminal reforms on Sri Lankan Police's 150th anniversary. Nepal Army Colonel acquitted by British court on charges of torture and war crimes. Human rights not improving in Papua Indonesia. Pakistan's Kalash minority may vanish under state policies. Urgent appeals from Indonesia. Welcome to AHRC TV's Just Asia. I am Julia Roblando. This week, we begin with Sri Lanka on the eve of the Sri Lanka Police celebrating 150 years of service. A TV program was held discussing Sri Lanka's policing service, its history and present status, and the country's much-needed criminal justice reforms. Held on the popular News First TV channel's Newsline program on 7 September 2016, the discussion was attended by Mr. Basil Fernando, Director of Policy and Programs, the Asian Human Rights Commission, and Inspector General of Police, Priyantha Jayakody, who is currently in charge of crimes and criminal intelligence. The discussion was moderated by senior journalist Faraz Shaukataly. We bring you excerpts from the discussion.
How do the police fare now? There's always public concern that the police are not really delivering upon the public's expectations, that there is unfair amount of force used by the police against suspects, and that the conditions are dreadful, and that the rights are being not being met or not being given or respected, and you know that the police are very good at stopping the small man and are very poor at stopping the big fish. How do you react to
this?
That?
This is little arguable decision because everywhere in the world, police is doing some part of governing the people.
Yeah.
And as a philosophy, any person doesn't like for this governing issue. As an example, you say that one person stopped the car in an allowed parking area.
Yeah.
Sometimes, as a police personnel, we have to take some immediate action according to the ground situation. If the police constable comes and inform him that, please take your car because there's a requirement. But this is little arguable thing. Then he is not happy with the way the police orders him. Actually, it is some governing concept. On this basic, some people doesn't like police. I should say that police, I couldn't say that police is purely a white and it's very perfect. There are some police officers, because we are having 84,000 members in the police, Sri Lanka Police.
Thank you for that. Mr. Fernando, what do you say? Is the police doing a good job?
Well, you see, we could look at it this way. If the criminals don't like the police, that's a good thing.
Indeed.
If the victims of crime have problems with the police, then we must really worry about that. See, that is unfortunately, when the system does not work, the criminals are happy. Because they have so many ways to circumvent. And the victim is unhappy. See, for example, you know, let us say you are a rape victim, young girl who has been raped. See, what you expect the least when you go to a police station, that you will be received well. Despite of whether you are a poor or any, it's the poor people who get into this most of the time. That you will be received well, that your complaint will be taken down well, and all the preliminary things
and
will
that
be
you will be treated with some sympathy.
Sympathy and, you know, the respect for human dignity. Now, how many accidents we hear experience?
Yeah.
Just when you look at the police, the paper, the few days back, I said within one day, six people being killed. Now, all this is, you know, organizational issue. The whole, how do you organize the whole setup?
Yeah.
And there are difficulties. You know, there are recruitments to the police purely on the political purposes, particularly around 2006.
Right.
And I think the number was not small.
Right.
Number is about 26,000 people
Right.
were brought in out of the 85,000 police force without going into the normal process of recruitment, looking into their background, looking into their educational qualifications.
But now they are part of the police force, so it'll take time for this to be cleansed.
No, it's, the question is not only cleansing, that some of those people who came as the reserve police officer
Are now
today can be at a higher position.
Right.
So these are problems. The question is how openly we are willing to talk about these problems.
Right.
How we willing to admit these problems, and how willing the government support a change. Because ultimately these things don't depend only on the police or the police commission.
The government has some role to play.
Major role to play by providing, first of all, the policy line.
Yeah.
Secondly, the necessary funding into creating a viable system that to be keeping with the demands of a different age.
Well, what's the level of corruption, do you think, at the low level?
Yes, corruptions, according to the research, 4 to 5% of the people in the service tend to corrupt. But out of the 95% are not in that position. And now under the leadership of the present Inspector General of Police, but now we have fixed the responsibility. That means the line of responsibility. Now recently there was an incident where the police inspector was charged, detected by the officers of the bribery and corruption. But his immediate supervisor, the in charge of the superintendent, senior superintendent of this particular division, were asked for his accountability. Why this happened, and he was transferred out of his assignment. And this sort of system is also on the way, but we just keep our eye blind, and the line of responsibility also fixed under the new leadership, and that's the way. And not only that, because we'll have to change. This is you can't do overnight, because you have to.
But that's the point.
Yes,
you see,
because my point of view is there is a big requirement of change in the culture.
Next, Nepal Army Colonel Kumar Lama has been acquitted by a British court on charges of torture and war crimes. The jury decided that there was insufficient evidence to be satisfied of Lama's guilt. Earlier on August 1st, the court had already acquitted Lama in the case of torturing 2 Maoist rebels in 2005. Although the court in Nepal had established torture against the duo, the British jury found the evidence did not meet the threshold to convict him. Colonel Lama was arrested 3 years ago in the UK under the principle of universal jurisdiction on the charges of torturing 2 alleged Maoist rebels when he was in charge of the army barracks in Kapilvastu. Janak Bahadur Raut and Karam Hussain were arrested during the Maoist insurgency on the suspicion of assisting rebels. The principle of universal jurisdiction allows serious human rights abuses such as war crimes, rape, disappearance, and torture to be prosecuted in Britain and elsewhere, irrespective of where they occurred. This is a watershed moment for Nepal's transitional justice process. The court acquittal must be respected as it gave its verdict upon available evidence. Colonel Lama is the first person to be tried outside Nepal for alleged human rights violation and war crimes in Nepal under universal jurisdiction, opening the door for other victims. This is also an indication and opportunity for the government of Nepal to create the right legal framework and build robust justice institutions where it can prosecute serious human rights violations. Moving to Papua Indonesia, the protection of human rights in the province has not shown any improvement, with the criminal justice system remaining weak, and the law enforcement agencies and military personnel still committing human rights violations. In fact, the law enforcement agencies and criminal justice system in Papua and West Papua provinces have themselves become part of the problem. As a result of the failure of justice mechanisms, Papuans do not see their rights fulfilled or respected in the manner of Indonesian citizens by the government. Rather, the presence of state security forces in the region has led to routine violence and the restriction of freedom of opinion, assembly, and thought. Most human rights abuses in Papua are not prosecuted, such as the Paniai incident on 8 December 2014, where 4 indigenous Papuan children were shot to death, 2 adults seriously injured, and 17 others injured. The shooting and brutal attack on 10 indigenous Papuan youth conducted by police officers of the Tigi police sector is another such example. Moreover, despite the current government's declaration that foreign journalists will be allowed to visit Papua and West Papua provinces, in fact, journalists face considerable difficulties in visiting, having to go through 12 bureaucracies to obtain a permit. To learn more, Just Asia speaks to Mr. Theo Hesijem, Papuan rights defender.
Meningkat kasus pelanggaran HAM sendiri, sebenarnya kita harapkan kasus penyelesaian pelanggaran HAM itu harus dilakukan oleh negara, tapi bicara soal penyelesaian pelanggaran HAM, justru kasusnya itu terus terjadi, penembakan terus terjadi di mana-mana, terus penangkapan juga terjadi di mana-mana, kemudian juga orang tidak bisa menyampaikan pendapat di muka umum, dan itu saya pikir sudah termasuk pelanggaran HAM. Dan ada beberapa kasus pelanggaran HAM yang secara terbuka itu tidak diselesaikan secara adil apa yang diharapkan oleh masyarakat Papua, dan tidak pernah ada keadilan yang terjadi terhadap korban-korban dan keluarga korban yang ada di sana. Yang kami harapkan keadilan itu harus terjadi dan penegakan hukum itu harus dilakukan, tapi penegakan hukum, proses penegakan hukum itu tidak berjalan dengan baik. Yang saya melihat proses penegakan hukumnya itu sedang berjalan di tempat terhadap negara ini, bahwa negara serius untuk menyelesaikan kasus pelanggaran HAM, tapi justru kepercayaan itu akan menurun karena kasus-kasus itu juga terus terjadi. Saya pikir niat baik pemerintah ini juga dikendalikan oleh anggota-anggota atau polisi-polisi yang ada atau TNI yang ada di sana. Niat baik itu tidak boleh lagi dikotori oleh oknum-oknum anggota polisi atau oknum anggota tentara yang ada di sana. Dan itu
In Pakistan, the country's smallest ethnic and religious community is fighting for the survival of its culture and religious identity in the face of religious extremism, migration, and climate change. The Kalash people live primarily in the Kalash Valley, Chitral district, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province of Pakistan. Music and ethics are important components of Kalash religion. While a UN General Assembly resolution has suggested that Kalash culture should be declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Kalash community is deprived of its constitutional rights in Pakistan. Their religion is not included in the list of government-approved religions, forcing them to choose Buddhism or Islam. Similarly, their language is not included in the 12 languages the provincial government has allowed in schools, despite the fact that they have their own textbooks. Many migrants are moving into the valleys occupied by the Kalash. Some of these migrants are brainwashing the Kalash people, leading to many conversions to Islam. Chitral district also borders Afghanistan, and many Muslim militants from there sneak into the pasture land of Bombard Valley, kill shepherds from the Kalash community, and take away herds of goats. These problems are compounded by the floods affecting the area, which have damaged dozens of fields and houses, washing away bridges. The global community must undertake serious efforts for the protection and conservation of Kalash culture. Finally, the Urgent Appeals Weekly features one case from Indonesia. A fabricated case was initiated against Mr. Dedi Sutento concerning allegations of corruption involving a local businessman. Mr. Dedi and his friends were charged with criminal defamation, while the media who published the news was never called in by the police. Dedi and his friends were immediately summoned and named as suspects. That is all for this episode of Just Asia. For more on these and other issues, please visit www.humanrights.asia or www.alrc.asia/justasia. Thank you for watching and see you next week.